Right, guys, we are here for a new series called The Breakdown for none other than the man in screen at the minute, 2023 Parkdean Masters champion, John Harvey. How we doing, bud?
How you doing, boy? You right?
All good, mate. All good. So, what
Good.
we are here to talk about, as people can see in the background, is a big check with £15,000 on it.
Nice little chuck it on a pile of the rest of it. Be lovely.
So we're here to break down the Parkdean final.
Yeah, it's just a sort of a breakdown of our festival and our final because you were there as well, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So we thought it'd
Exactly.
just be better to have a sort of a chat about it and sort of how we went about it and how we fished it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just for other people to sort of know, and if they do get to the final, at least they'll have a bit of a insight to it.
Bit of an insight. And as a lot of people know, they'll go on YouTube and search white acres and everything like that. There's not a lot of content, is there, mate, really?
No, there's not, to be honest. Like, those festivals, they have loads of festivals throughout the year. They've been going for donkey's years now, haven't they?
Yeah.
And apart from like a few of the anglers like John Arthur and a few people like that, they've done little bits filming for YouTube and all that. There's not really a lot of information on it, on the match sort of side of it. So
yeah,
tried to do a few live matches and a few bits and a few vlogs and on my YouTube channel, but this is just a bit of a chat and a breakdown in it, just to sort of give people insight into the Preston Festival and the final itself. Like,
yeah, what it actually takes to get there, guys, as a general. So Preston Festival, a bit about that is obviously you need to qualify for that as well, don't you, John?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a, you've got to qualify from a festival early in the year to get into the Preston Festival, and then obviously the top 24 in that Preston Festival. I think it's 120 in it.
Yeah,
the festival.
120. Yeah,
and the top 24 then get a chance to fish that Parkdean Masters. But the 120 that are in that Preston Festival are the best 120 from all the other festivals. So there's not, there's a good standard of angler in it.
It is, mate. It is, and we'll go on to it now. Obviously, you finished in the top 10 of the festival. How many points did that take? And obviously, the results through the week.
Yeah, so I finished 6th in the festival. I ended up with 31 points. I think 32 is the maximum.
Yep.
I had 3 wins and a second, dropping a 5th in the section. So, I dropped sort of 1 point throughout the week, and then my dropper, which was my 5th. So, it's a ridiculously sort of high scoring festival, and you've sort of got to be on your game all the way through, because you have good pegs, but you also have these average pegs that you need to make the most of, basically.
Yeah.
So, like you fished the festival as well, so like you had a similar sort of a week, didn't you? Because we was in the same sort of rotation.
Yeah, very similar, mate, to be honest with you, with obviously a few of them bad pegs in there. But I finished up with a first, a second, and 2/3, dropping a 4th, which consistency is really good, especially for some of the draws.
You in the final, didn't it?
But yeah, they got me in the final, obviously. I think 27 points was to get into the final, and it went down to the last 27th point, I think, wasn't it? Which was Alex Hume that had 27 and a 6th, I think.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. So 20, when the maximum sort of 32, and then 27 is like the last cut-off. There's not a lot of room for mistakes, is it?
Not at all, mate. Not at all.
So it is a really high standard. It's sort of got to be on your game all week. It's 5 days fishing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
People think 5 days fishing is a holiday, but it's not a holiday.
No.
You're knackered in the nights, and
no. Not in the Cornish weather either, because you never know what's going to come.
No, we had wind, rain, sunshine,
23 degrees, the lot.
Yeah, it was all sorts down there. So it's one of them, but you had to keep on your game.
Yeah. Exactly that, mate. Exactly that. So we'll go on to the final now, mate. Jenny's Lake itself. What do we obviously think of the lake? Usually, it's sort of a
But
70 to 80 pound to win the match.
yes, I really like the league. I think it's a brilliant league because if you look at all the finals, it's never won from the same areas. Like Peg 16, but there's been a good area over the years. But it's been won on the opposite bank twice, opposite 16. It got one from the end Peg 20. I think the 1 year Trig won it.
Yeah,
It's been one from Peg 4 and 5 a few times. It's been one from the 40s. Do you mean it's? I think Des won it off 45 the 1 year.
yeah,
Well, the 1 year I was second to him. So,
yeah,
but yeah, so all over the lake, you can't sort of choose where. There's good areas, don't get me wrong, but you can never choose where the winner's going to come from. But so I think makes it more exciting as a final venue, like.
yeah. And we've been fishing all the way through the week. Why takers do the draw for us for the whole festival. But going into the Saturday, we're doing our own draw. There was obviously a big buzz going around that, I feel.
Oh, it was mega, wasn't it? It was
Yeah,
mega this morning. In the morning, it was just mega. Like, I love my fishing. I love my sort of fishing. Love these big finals and all that. And every time I go to a big final and I got to draw my own peg, I just get a little bit of like butterflies. Do you mean when you
yeah,
think to yourself just before you're about to go in and draw your peg, it's a little bit of butterflies thinking, oh, where am I going to draw? What peg am I going to have? And I just
yeah,
think that's brilliant in a final, isn't it?
yeah. And you went on and drew a peg that you've drew previously.
Yeah, yeah, peg 15. It was my second choice on the day. I wanted peg 4, but Ben Ag had that, didn't he?
Yeah,
So I went in there, had 15, which was my second choice. And my second choice, really, because I was second to Des on it sort of 2 or 3 years earlier.
yeah,
And I just felt there was a bit of unfinished business. Do you mean?
yeah,
On that peg. Although I felt like I fished a good match the first time,
mm,
there was areas of it, and I think to myself, I made mistakes,
yeah,
and if I went back there, I would change them and I'd put them right. And it was like drawing it the second time was like, right, let's put these sort of mistakes that I did in the first time right, and see where it gets me. And like you were there as well. Like none of us have fished the lake. None of us
nope,
have seen anything about it. None of us knew really what it was going to fish like. And I honestly thought in the morning and the night before, I honestly thought it was going to be a 70 to 80 pound day, like, because it's only 4 hours.
yeah,
It's not the 5 hours you normally get. It's only 4 hours. So I thought 70 to 80 pound is normally there or thereabouts. And I've seen it won with as low as like 59 pound.
yeah,
I think Brad Hancock won it the 1 year with like 59, 60 pound. So like 70 to 80 is like, if you can get it to that area, you've got a hell of a chance, like.
yeah.
And that's what I sort of aimed for. But on the day, the fished a hell of a lot better than that, didn't it?
It
I
did, mate.
didn't expect that.
It did. It was one of them sort of freak days, I feel, but also at the same time, the lake hadn't been fished, well, match fished all year, has it? Really?
Not really. No, no, no. I can't remember the last time there was a match on it. I think they might have had a couple of like residents or rovers on there,
Yeah,
like early in the year, but not certainly not for the month or two before that Preston Festival and our final. So no one really knew, and it's one of those lakes where, like, I had to go down and fish the Drennan Festival and fished a few of the winter festivals, and
yeah,
Jenny's is always in on them, and it's one of those lakes that it's ram packed full of fish. There's
yeah,
just so many fish in there, and it's just like sorting out what to catch, what fish to catch in what areas, and at what time of the match you need to catch them. And
yeah,
I think that's the difference of it, is trying to sort that bit out. But to be honest, it fished an hell of a lot better than I thought. I like I said, I aimed for 70 to 80 pound, and it was like I think I had 134 pound. So I
yeah.
mean, it was like it's mental, really.
Which I feel as well is probably the biggest winning weight for the parkdean final. I don't think we were
I'm
sure about it, were we? But
I'm not 100% sure. I know Paul Holland had 120
yeah,
1 year, and I think Jamie Wild had quite a big weight 1 year,
yeah,
but I'm not sure what weight it was. But certainly 134 pound has not been it's not been a weight that big in recent years.
no.
So it might be the biggest weight ever to win the parking. I don't know.
Yeah, and the stocking of the lake, for those guys that don't know, why takes it all really. You've got the big head of carp that is in Jenny's, but you've also got the F1s, Carasio, and Skimmers.
Yeah, there's tension here as well. There's like there's a bit of everything. But I think the main sort of species you target are the Carasios, F1s, and the carp. Innit?
Yeah,
I mean,
correct.
the carp are big. The carp are big. They're from like I know there's a few stockies in there, but
Yeah,
they're mainly from about £5 to like 12, £15, isn't they?
yeah, they are.
And they don't get caught very often. So when you hook them, they go nuts.
Yeah, they
Do
do.
you mean?
Correct.
And you know, they're the sort of big sort of game changing fish then. But the Carasios and the F1s are like your sort of bread and butter. You need to be sort of ticking along with and catching what you
That's
can.
that's
Do you mean?
it. And we'll go on to the match now, mate. Obviously, got to your peg, and what you said to me originally was you need to fish a match of two halves, and that's what you did.
Yeah, well, like I said, I had it before, and I felt like I made a few mistakes. And the first time I had it, I sort of went all out for carp to win, basically.
Yeah.
And my first sort of hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes wasn't very good. Probably only caught like 12 pounds, something like that. This was, the time that Des beat me. And then I caught a few carp late on, but in the end, it wasn't enough.
No.
I think I had £60, like 59, £60. And Des had 73, £74. So like you're only like £15 off. Do
Yeah.
you mean? And you think to yourself, oh, where could I have got that £15 from? But like I do, I always sort of beat myself up a little bit in these matches and sort of like probably overanalyze what I do. But I went home that year. I went home and I was driving home, and it's like a long old drive home, and you've got loads of time to think.
Yeah.
Thinking to myself, thinking I've done it wrong. I fished the wrong match. I should have just fished for everything that swims and caught those carp late, because no one caught carp early. There was an odd person caught like an odd fish early, but no one caught like any amount of carp early. And I thought, well, I need to do that. So when I got to the peg this time, I sort of put my box down, had a little look, and thought, I need to pick an area where I can fish for a bit of everything, and then like one or two areas where I'm going to catch carp. And I decided on a 14.5 meter line in line with a tree, because there was a little bit of dark water.
Yeah.
Because you fish Jenny's, that when the sun comes up and there's a little bit of ripple on it, it's a nightmare to see you float.
It is. You're right.
I found that little bit of dark water, and I thought, right, Plummet Bay, found a nice depth. I thought, right, that's where I'm going to fish for Carasios and F1s. And then I've plumbed another line up, same depth, like at an angle, but going into the gap towards you.
Yeah.
And I left it alone, never fed it. And I was going to sort of try and catch carp there later on in the match. And then I had that edge, which I knew was going to come good at some point. But I didn't know how many fish you'd catch in it. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe 4 or 5 if you're lucky. I did feed a meat short line, but I never ever went on it. Never dropped on it. Just didn't feel like it was an area that I was gonna catch a pile of fish on. It was like too close to me.
Yeah. Well, I think what we worked out through the week as well is there wasn't that many fish caught on meat short, was there?
No, not really. Like the ones you did catch on meat short were like really late in the match.
Yeah.
Which, if I was going to catch them really late in the match on that line, my edge was never going to be as good.
Yeah.
I needed to sort of have my edge line as the line that I sort of finished on. Do you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was one of those, and I sort of started my match. I chopped some worms up, put some casters in with it, put some micros in with it. I had some mud, so some like peat. Then I put half ground bait and half peat together in a tub, so that there was that sort of scent of the ground bait, but not loads of it.
Yeah.
And just mixed it all together. So I had a bit of food content in it, a little bit of peat, a little bit of ground bait, and I thought to myself, you know, I could put that into little stodgy balls, put a little sort of like target area, and put like a worm head or like an inch piece of worm directly over the top of that sort of little target area.
Yeah.
And that was my sort of way I was going to fish that long line. And then I was going to sort of big pot casters and fish a whole worm over the top of it to try and catch some carp at an angle later on.
Yeah.
And then my edge was I was going to feed him a ground bait to start and then change it to casters when I was actually fishing it. Like me and you were talking about casters, weren't we?
We were.
Throughout the week, and it was amazing how many carp was caught on casters that week.
Yeah, like it was silly. I mean, me and James actually ran out of casters after the last day, and it's hard to get hold of when you're down there. Don't get me wrong, the tackle shop's great down there, but at the same time, you want the same consistency of bait that you've had all week. But like you say, the amount of carp that were caught on casters all week was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was just noticeable, wasn't it? Noticeable to see that a lot of carp was getting caught on casters. Even when you were fishing for F1s or even silvers in the edge, you catch carp on casters. It was like they just, for some reason, they were homed in on casters. And I had that in my mind when I went to the match. I wanted to fish casters and worms.
Yeah.
Knowing how many carp was caught on casters, and knowing that I caught carp on there before big potting casters and fishing worms over the top.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what, this has sort of made my mind up a little bit. And, you know, it's worked a treat. Like, it's worked a treat. Like, I fed a little sort of ball, must have been a little bit bigger than a golf ball.
Yeah.
On my 14-meter line, sort of, as soon as the whistle went in and fed it. I chucked a little method to the point of the island. I had 2 chucks on her. I had 1 sort of 6-ounce stocky carp.
Yeah.
On it.
Same as me.
1 little 6-ounce stocky carp. And after the second chuck, I looked over to where my, like in line with the tree.
Yeah.
And I could see the bottom fizzing.
Mm.
And I just know on that lake it's so silty that as soon as they start digging the bottom up and making it fizz, they're just a nightmare to catch. It's like, you know, you're better off just like moving and starting again.
Yeah.
And I've known that from the past. And as soon as I chucked that second chuck and I could see the fizzing, I thought, oh, I need to get on that quick.
Yeah.
Before they make it a mess. So I just reeled in, hooked the method up, put it down, chucked like sort of an inch piece of worm on to start with.
Yeah.
Went out, no feed in the pot at all because it was fizzing. So I knew there was fish there. Laid the rig in, lowered it down. I reckon 30 seconds is banged under and I've got an F1. And it's like £1.5 to £2. And I caught like 3 fish doing that before I fed. And I fed again, caught like another 1 or 2. And then that's when it all started going a bit pear-shaped then because it was so much fizzing going on. Every time you hooked the fish, it just, the bottom erupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I caught like sort of 4 or 5 fish, like crassios and F1s. And you go in and it'd be like, you know, you have a bite, you miss it. You have another bite, you miss it. You strike your foul hook one and you think to yourself, it's not right.
No.
It's not right, this is. And I made the decision quite quickly to not sort of give it time.
Yeah.
And just restart my swim. So I like just picked the plumbed up a new line, sort of 1.5 foot, 2 foot away from it, put another little ball in, started again.
Yeah.
And I basically done that sort of 5 or 6 times in the first like 2 hours of the match.
Yeah.
And every time I caught like 3 or 4 F1s or crassios really quick over the top of it. And then it went a bit shitty. You can catch an odd 1 or 2 more, but then it'd go a little bit sort of shitty then. But it got me up to sort of 50. I had £51 on my clicker after 2 hours. And I think that net weighed 55 on the day. So I've had like £55 in those 2 hours, just sort of fishing worms and just working my swim. And you know, from the last time I was on it, it was the decisions that I wanted to make and wanted to put right.
Yeah.
And it did. It worked. Like, it worked really well. But how did you sort of start your match then?
So obviously the guys that don't know, I drew peg 9, which is obviously next to you. Quite a gap between us, wasn't there? Really?
Yeah.
With the narrow channel, obviously, from previous years, knowing that there's a lot of carp usually down that channel, isn't there? I went big gun approach, really. Fished hard pellets up the bank and hard pellet short, and then ground bait and maggots in the edge. I feel if there was more fish in the area, this would probably have played a bit more into my sort of wheelhouse. But at the same time, I think running out of casters at the festivals probably cost me a little bit. But in all fairness, mate, you've probably fished one of the best matches I've seen in a long time. And as you said to me the other day, you even got a compliment off Mikey.
Yeah. You don't get. Mikey did give me a compliment, and to get a compliment off Mikey is it's a big task.
Yeah.
Do you mean? But he did, to be fair to him, he gave me a really good compliment, and it's nice to hear off someone of that sort of quality and that standard.
Yeah.
To come up to me and sort of give me a compliment like that, I really appreciate that. Like, and especially when you feel like you fished a good match, you feel like you fished a good match. You feel like you've got things right. You feel like you made the right decisions at the right times. It's really nice for someone else to say, like, and it's one of them, like. But my match sort of changed. I don't know about your match, but my match sort of changed after those 2 hours. Like I said, I had £55 in the net, and Andy Ford was covering it for that TNT Sports.
Yeah.
And he's come round and he's had a little chat with Barraclough that was up to my right. Now I could see Barraclough catch him, but I felt like I was in front of him.
Yeah.
But I clearly wasn't, because he was catching carp and I was catching F1s and Crassios. But Andy Ford's walked down and he sort of said, "Oh, can I have a little chat to you for TNT? Can I have a little interview for the match?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem." He said, "Oh, I'll have to come in quite close." I said, "Yeah, come on, come in." Like, and just before he set it up for the interview, I said, "Well, what's happening? Who's catching? And anyone catching?" And he said, "Oh, I don't really know." He said, "I've just spoken to Steve, and Steve's got £70."
Yeah.
And I thought, well, bloody hell, he's got more than what I thought. And I thought in my head then, I need to change this up now and sort of like fish for carp rather than carry on plodding along, because I was still getting odd bites. Do you mean? And it sort of changed my match a little bit, because I thought to myself, well, I've got 2 hours left. I know I'm going to fish the last hour in the edge.
Yeah.
So I need to catch some carp now this next hour. So I've gone towards that channel, like you said.
Yeah.
And something I've done on there quite a few times to catch carp is like big pot in like a volume of bait.
Yeah.
And just fishing a big, huge target bait over the top of it. And it's worked really well on it in the past. And I thought, right, I'm going to try that again and see if I can catch some carp doing it.
Yeah.
And I put like a full 250 50 ml pot of casters in and gone straight over the top of it with a whole worm. And just sat there, and there was no sort of bubbles, no indications, nothing. Your float's just sat there, no liners, nothing. And you sat there thinking, is this going to go? Is this going to go? And I was just patient, and probably waited 10 minutes after feeding. And it's a long time to be sat there waiting, isn't it? And it's slammed under, and I've struck, and I've had like a £6 ghosty.
Yeah.
And then and instead of going straight back over it, I've just got the pot again, filled it up, put it back in, straight over the top. And I reckon that next time I only waited like 3 minutes, and it was banging, and it was under again.
Yeah.
And I've had sort of 4 carp on that line for probably 20 odd pound, I expect.
Yeah.
They were like 5 to 6 pounders. So probably 20 to 25 pound. Which got me up to sort of like 75 pound. And at that stage, there was still an hour or so left of the match, hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes left. And I thought, you know what, I hate to say it, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to win this.
Yeah.
Because I could see Barraclough out of the corner of my eye, and he was slowing up. And I felt to myself, God, if I can have a good run in that edge, I'll win this.
Yeah.
But at that time, I didn't have a clue that Ben Ag was catching. Didn't have an inkling because I couldn't see him. There was no one around me to tell me that he was catching because there was no bank runners or anything.
Yeah.
So literally, I didn't even know about Ben. I thought it was between me and Barraclough. So like, I fed my edge with like three pots of ground bait. I think it might have been 4 pots of ground bait. Fed my edge with like 3 or 4 pots of ground bait. And the last time I drew this peg, fish would come straight in on our ground bait. And he'd be in there and they'd be messing about and swirling, turning the mud up.
Yeah.
And it was very, very hard to sort of get him on the hook. And with that in mind, with the fact that I know they've been loving casters,
yeah,
in my head, I was like, I'm going to feed ground bait until they're in there, and then I'm just going to fish it the same as I did on that sort of long line, and just big pot casters and fish 2 whole worms over the top, and just like bit heavier gear, and just try and nail them. And you know what, I fed that ground bait, and I reckon within 15 minutes I could see the difference in colour. There was fish in there. I put a big pot of casters in there, went over the top of it. I reckon I waited a minute max, and I had one on, and they were sort of. I had F1s that were like £3, and then carp up to sort of £12. I had one 10 or £12. I had a couple that was like £7 or £8, and caught probably £50 or £60 on an edge in the last hour, and I just kept. I felt like I was ahead of Barraclough, but I didn't 100% know. So in my head, I kept thinking, right, let's go down, let's get another one.
Yeah.
Let's make sure of it. Let's make sure we're ahead of him. And I catch that one, and I'd be like, right, let's get back down there, catch another one. And every time I caught one, I just felt myself like, I got to keep catching. I got to keep catching. I got to get another one. And I've just done that right till the end. And then as it's finished and it's all done, I looked at my clicker, and it was like I had 3 click, the triple clicker, press triple clicker. I had three clickers on it, and it was like £51, £43, £28, and I was like, so I like added it all up, and it was like £122, and I was like, God, that's a good weight. That is.
That is,
that's a good weight in a 4-hour parking final. And I thought, I think I've beaten Steve Barraclough. I thought, you know what, Steve's fished a good match. But I felt like I'd beaten him.
Yeah.
And then someone walked on the bank to me and was like, "Oh, Ben Ag's got £120."
Yeah.
And I just deflated. I was like, "Oh, what? No one told me about Ben."
Yeah.
And if he's saying he got 120, he's probably got 130, 140.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. And then I started packing away, and there's like all these sort of emotions are going through your head, and all these like sort of feelings are going through your head, and you're packing away, and it's like, people are coming up to you saying, "Oh, well done," and you're just like, "Well,
it's not happened yet."
Yeah, I don't know what's happened yet. And I think, if I remember correctly, you weighed, and you walked down to me, and you said, "Have you got £122?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Why is that?" And you said, "Well, Ben's weighed £122, so many ounces." And I was like, "Well, I got 122 on my clicker."
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it weighs more, like.
Yeah.
Do you mean? And it was like that weight of when everyone was walking down, and like the scales come down, and they set the scales up, and they zeroed the bloody net, and it was like, just get over and done with, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of like, I pulled the first net out and put it on, and it went like £55 something. Pulled the second net out, it went like £43 and so many ounces.
Yeah.
And then the last net, it was like, I clicked 28 in it, and I thought, I don't know whether it is 28.
Yeah.
And then I pulled it out, and as I pulled it out, I was like, oh, that's close.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, and I couldn't work out what I already had. I think it was like 90 odd pound, 99 pound odd. Couldn't work out what I already had, and like tipped it on the scales, and they put it in, and it went like £35.
Yeah.
Or £34 an ounces, and it didn't click. Like if I had enough straight away, I was like, didn't click, and then he shouted out, "Oh, £135 or £134, £134.80 it was."
Yeah.
And you know, few people said, "Oh, congratulations!" And Ben, to be fair to him, was there watching it, and he said, "Oh, well done, Harv. Well done, fair play to you." And he's walked off down, which must have been heartbreaking for him.
Yeah,
because,
it must have been.
I know how I felt when I was second, and I was a little bit, well, probably the same sort of distance away.
Yeah.
12 to 15 pound, but it's just not a nice feeling to be in that position, is it?
No, definitely not, mate.
I was buzzing. I was over the moon to win it, like over the moon. Do you mean? I felt like everything I done went to plan. Every like decision I made was done quick, and my gear, like all my gear, stood up to everything. Like those fish, like you said, they run off like,
like no man's
ridiculous
business.
It's ridiculous how much they try and break you.
Yeah,
and like all my gear stood up to the test. Like the elastics were brilliant. The line, I never had a breakage, never had a hook pull.
Nope.
It was like everything just stood up to the test, and it just went my way.
Yeah,
just went my way, like, and I'm glad it did, mate. Yeah, it was a nice match. But you obviously won your section as well, so you had a good match. Do you mean? Like,
yeah. It was one of them matches, mate. It was one of them. Obviously, my section was Trig on 8. Got Callum Dix on the opposite bank and Ryan Laycock. Big shout out to Ryan, actually. Fished 2 weeks down there. And I think it was 2 top 10s, wasn't it, for Ryan?
He's a good angler, Ryan. Very, very good angler.
And in all honesty, mate, I thought Ryan got between 60 and 70 pound. But he was playing fish for quite a long time, I'd say. I've ended up with 7 carp, 3 F1s, and a few skimmers, which have gone £59, which is, I think, beat Ryan by, I think, £10, something like that, which I was over the moon with, really. But at the end of the day, the peg itself, that peg 9, I don't think it had stood up to, say, 130, something like that.
No, I don't think it is a 130 peg. I don't think there's many pegs on there that can produce like a 120, 130. I think it's probably only 1920, 1615.
Yeah.
Peg 4, and probably 1 or 2 of those shallow pegs, like where James drew.
Yeah.
Pegs they are could potentially catch that amount.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not, if it's a £70 match, there's probably 90% of the pegs will catch £70. But 120 to 130 is a big weight on a 4-hour match, isn't it?
It is, mate. It is.
It is a big weight.
But obviously, we'll finish up the match chat there, but we'll go into a little bit. Obviously, there was 6 sections to be won overall, wasn't there?
Yeah,
and I think
6 sections.
And I think 4 of them went back over the bridge, didn't they?
Well, I took the 15. I think Crocker took £1,000. Mikey took £1,000. And then Matthew Grono was next to me. So he had the section by default. Don't think James was very happy with that, was he?
No, he wasn't, but we won't talk about that one.
Math had that section by default. So I think all in all, it was like 17,000 taken out of the 21 over the bridge. So Welsh takeover.
But yeah, it's been obviously great chat, mate. We'll talk a bit now, obviously, about the channel. We're gonna few new things come in. Just quickly, obviously, you're gonna continue with the live matches going forward.
We're gonna do plenty of live matches. We're coming into winter now, so it's going to be a little bit harder to get out, but definitely starting next year. Through the spring, summer months, we're going to do a lot of live matches, a lot of sort of tips and hints and tutorial sort of videos as well. These sort of breakdowns. Do you mean these sort of like match chats and breakdowns? Do a few of them as well, and hopefully throughout the year we'll get into a few finals, maybe win a few, and have some good matches to talk about on these channels, like.
Exactly. So to all the guys out there, I'll let you finish this off, mate. But from myself anyway, make sure you like and subscribe, guys. we'll try and give you as much information as possible for everything related to John's fishing. But I'll let you finish it off, mate.
Yeah, and cheers for jumping on board as well, Al, because you great help with help me doing a bit of editing because it allows me to do the fishing side a little bit more. So that's a great help. So big thank you to you. And like I said, guys, you know what I mean, like and subscribe the channel. Hit the little bell to give you a notification so you don't miss any content. And we're going to be trying to do loads and loads more throughout this year and next year. And like we said, it's completely free. Do you mean we're going to do it all completely free? There's no subscriptions, and you know you can have as much sort of tactics, tips, hints, live matches, all of what you can, free of charge. So you know, keep up the good work, and hopefully you boys will enjoy what we're doing.
There we go. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.